Hi everybody, this is Oksana. Today we're going to make this fun little sterling silver mini pendant using these two Australian Opal Doublets. Feel free to follow this along in copper. And they are kind of like teardrop-ish in shape, but they're not perfect little teardrops. They're slightly uneven. So I just want to show you that you can combine stones of different, shapes and make a little dual stone pendant, even if they're not, perfect, because I think in my other videos I usually use like teardrops and ovals, so I just wanted to do kind of like uneven stones and then combine them together. I know in my previous video I did that and I put them side by side in one pendant, so this time it's going to be one on top of the other. And then also, I think a lot of times you see the smaller stone on top, so I wanted to do the smaller stone on the bottom, bigger stone on top. So just a cute little mini pendant. If you want to see how I did it, just keep watching. So for my tools, I have some wire cutters. Mine are Swanstrom brand. Then I have some round nose pliers, which are the Lindstrom brand. They are the RX 7590. And then I have regular pliers, which are also Lindstrom, and they're RX 7890. And then I have a couple of other pliers. I'm gonna have a video coming out on tools, and so I want to show you when I'm actually making pendants. I usually use different pliers for different purposes because I find that some work better than others for certain little jobs. And so in my tutorials I tend to use just one set of pliers to make it less confusing. But today I'm going to show you that I actually typically, when not making a tutorial, I use three, and I'm going to show you what I use each one for. But you can get away with just using one set of pliers for everything. That's totally fine. But the other ones I'm going to use are the Xuron tweezer nose pliers, which are these, and then these Swanstrom. I don't know what these are called because they came in a kit, but they're just the wider ones like that. So I'm going to be using sterling silver wire in square 21 gauge dead soft, and also half round 24 gauge dead soft, and these are from riogrande.com. The stones I'm going to be using are Australian Opal Doublets, which means that they have a layer of Australian opal attached to another stone like this, which is what makes them doublets. And these are uneven shapes, but they're kind of like teardrop-ish shapes, like a slightly uneven teardrop. And I'm going to position one point up, and that's going to go on the bottom, and then this one is going to be point down, and they're going to be arranged like this. And in terms of their size, they're fairly small, about 15 millimeters in size for both of them. And that is also the reason that I'm using 21 gauge wire. You can make this pendant bigger with bigger stones, but I would switch to 20 gauge wire once they got, not just a few millimeters bigger, but like significantly bigger. I would use a thicker wire for sturdiness and strength. But if your stones are really tiny, it's easier to use a thinner wire. That's why I'm using 21 gauge instead of 20. So I have 3 pieces of the square wire, and they are 9 inches long. And what I'm gonna do is just find the middle of them and just kind of hold them roughly in the middle. And then I'm gonna take that half round wire, take a little end of it, just a little tail end, and the flat side down and the rounded side up. I'm gonna start wrapping that around to make my connection. Okay, just like this, and that's going to keep my 3 wires together. Once you run out of the tail end, you flip this over, and then you turn the 3 wires while you guide with your other hand. Okay, otherwise this will get twisted because this part is still connected to the spool. This part wasn't. So that's why we have to do it that way. And then once it's long enough, which it doesn't have to be very long, it just for the purposes of keeping the wires together. You just trim so that your little wire ends are here on the same side. And these are my favorite pliers for pressing down on the half round wire. These Swanstrom ones that I showed you guys before. You can definitely use any of the other pliers as well, but if I have, you know, all three pliers available and I have a choice, I'm gonna reach for these ones. It just flattens it nicely. They're also wide, so it kind of accomplishes it quicker. So here's what that looks like. If there's any spacing, like little gaps, you can just kind of smush that together. And because my stone, the bottommost stone, looks like this, and it's going to be positioned like this, the bottom of it is a curve. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get started by curving this. So the part touching my stone, I want that to be this part with the wire ends. That way the wire ends are hidden inside of the frame. And the outside, there's no wire ends, nothing to get caught. Okay, so I'm just gonna start by using my finger to put a little bit of a curve into it. It depends on the shape of your stone, because this needs to fit the bottom of your stone. Your stone can be pointy, or it could be positioned this way. And in that case, I would maybe use my pliers and make this a little bit sharper of a bend instead of a curve. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hold that as I bend my wires around kind of the edges of my stone here, like so. And then I'm going to have them come together here. It is a teardrop, but it doesn't have like a very pointy top. It's kind of rounded. So there's going to be this little gap that you see on top of my stone, and I am going to remove my stone and use my pliers to kind of fix up these bends here, because one of the bends is a little more pronounced and the other one kind of doesn't look as good. So I'm just going to reinforce that by pressing on it with my pliers, and before I lock my stone in, I'm going to connect this. So I'm just going to use my half round wire again, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap it around a few times, not too many, although you could do a lot because that'll make it have like a larger gap between the stones, which might be a cool look actually. But yeah, maybe like 4 times or so. I think mine is maybe 5. So I'm going to press down on that. And then I'm just going to push it all the way down. And I'm going to take this little wire end here. I'm going to bring it through from back to front. I'm just going to pull on that. And I'm not going to get rid of this little end for now. Okay, I'm going to wait and get rid of it later, but you can maybe just bend it out of the way. Bend it to the side or something so it doesn't get in your way. And then what I'm going to do is separate these wires here. There's 3 on each side. Make sure that they're all straight, they're not crisscrossing or twisting. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of separate them out. I'm gonna look at my stone, which is also a teardrop that's going to be positioned like this, point down. So I just want to make sure that this opening here will fit the tip of my stone, which we just saw that it did. And now I'm going to finish off this wire. So what I'm going to do, here it is on the right. So I'm going to actually wrap it around these 3 wires like that. And then I'm going to continue it, bringing it all the way across the back, and then wrap it around the other 3 wires. So you can see the 2 little wraps. This is just how I like to do it. It kind of helps with unraveling. You could have done it here on the bottom as well, but I didn't. You don't have to do it. You can just do what I did here. Just put the wire from back to front, but just want to show you another option. So now I'm going to cut the wire so that the little end of it is here inside of the frame. I'm going to press down on that little bit like so. Push it in there. So now I'm going to lock my bottom stone in before I do the top. So I'm popping that back in there. And this is what I really like to use my Xuron pliers for, because their tip is kind of nice and flat. You've seen me in many of my videos using these pliers for that purpose, and they can be, and feel free to use them. You don't have to have, 3 different pliers like me, but since I have them, I prefer these for locking in the stone. So that's what I'm going to do, is use them. And first I'm going to come on the back and just bend the backmost wire onto the back of my stone to trap the back of my stone like that. And now I'm going to, I don't know if these are all like this, I think they are, but see how one is slightly wider and one is slightly thinner? I'm going to use the thinner one. Okay, and I'm going to take that thinner one, I'm going to wedge it in here, in between the 2 wires like that. See the little gap? And I'm going to wiggle it all the way down to the wrap, the beginning of that little half round wire wrap, and I'm going to bend it. Give it just a little bend so it bends onto the edge of my stone. Now it created a gap, so I'm going to press on that gap with my fingers to close that up so it's tighter up against the stone. It also made this wire move out of place, so I'm just gonna push it back, and I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side as well. So I'm wedging it in, going down, 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 going down to the beginning of that little wrap and turning my pliers to make this little bend here. And then there's likely going to be a little gap. I also want to make sure that the wire is on the actual edge of my stone. With these flatter looking stones, if you don't have it on the edge, it's not a like a rounded edge like on a cabochon where it gets thinner and thinner. These stones are pretty flat, so to trap them effectively you really have to have the wire on the very edge of the stone. And what you want to do is just come in here and press on the back of the stone to see if it's coming out. Okay, and if it is, then you want to bend the wires even more onto your stone to just really trap it in. Okay, all right, so now we're gonna put our other stone in, and we are gonna bend our other wires around, bringing them together, just trying to adjust so it looks kind of centered and straight, because you're not going to get it perfect with these uneven stones, but I'm just seeing kind of what looks good with the fact that my stones are uneven. All right, so I think that looks best in terms of the most kind of centered there. So now I'm putting the little bends into my wire up top here so that it comes together like that. I can remove my stone. Just going to give a pull to this little wire here, make sure it's nice and tight. And now I want to come in here and cut it really, really down in there, because you don't want the end of the wire to be sticking out. You don't want to feel it. And now we're going to use the half-round wire to make our bail and to connect these together. So line them up kind of side by side nicely like this. And then we're going to take the wire, wrap it around several times. Then we're going to do the same thing where we take the wire and put it through from the back to the front. Let's press on this. And then we're going to take and pull on this and then come in here and cut it. Oh, I didn't cut it good enough. I thought I could, it would just break off, but there we go. All right. And if that little wire end moved a little bit in the process, we can just push it back up like so. So I'm going to take the two frontmost wires, I'm going to separate them out, and then the other wires I'm going to separate out, so the two from this side are going there, and then these are going to their side. So, and now we're going to take this half-round wire and continue wrapping it, but we're going to be turning the piece and guiding the wire as we wrap it around just these two bail wires. And I'm just kind of pressing down on it with every little rotation so that there is no gap, because I can see gaps are going to be starting to form unless I kind of press it down, get a nice tight wrap there. And I'm going to do this for just a little bit off camera until it's about 3/4 of an inch tall. That's a good size for my bails, I find. And then you just want to trim that little wire end here on the inside. And this is also what I use these pliers for, pressing down nice and flat. Pressing down the wire end as well as the rest of that bail. Like that. Alright, so now I'm just going to pop that other stone back in here. And I'm going to lock it using the Zuron pliers again. So first on the back, I'm bending that backmost wire onto the stone, like so. And now on the front, this one is a little thicker. You can see it just kind of sticking out there. And it's not domed like a cabochon, it's pretty flat. So we're gonna have to do the same thing where we just make sure, just wedging that in there, going down, down, down to the very bottom. And bending it, we make sure this is gonna go on the stone. Okay, you might have to kind of help it on there. Might get stuck. So just make sure you help it get on that edge so that it's going to hold that stone. And same thing on the other side. Wedge it in there, get to the bottom, bend. I can see it's kind of stuck, I can feel it, not moving. Just going to push on that. There we go. We got over that edge. Now I can come back in, finish with the bending. All right, and just double check that your stone, if you press on it, doesn't pop out. All right, so now we're just gonna bend that bail. I like to just curve it with my finger into that bail-like shape, and then I'm tucking in my wire ends through the gap above my stone. You want at least a little gap there to tuck your wires through. And now we're just gonna press down on that So I'm gonna take the leftmost wire, kind of just wrap it around that edge there. And then here in the back, I'm gonna trim that wire and leave myself a little end so I can tuck that away. And then with this wire, I'm just gonna trim it here on the front, just really short so it's not sticking out. All right, so this little wire end, just tucking it in there into the gap inside, pressing it down to essentially just kind of hide it away. And now you have these 4 wires here. Just gonna separate them, frontmost wire, backmost wire, and they're for decoration. So if you have a preferred design, feel free to do that. If not, you can just follow along what I'm doing. The 2 frontmost ones, I'm just gonna twist them by holding and then turning the piece like so. And then this one as well. Just for a twisted look. This can only be done with square wire. And feel free to not do this if you don't like the look of it. All right, so I'm gonna start with my little kind of side swept thing where I take the wire. I'm gonna move it from right to left, but I'm also curving it, kind of like in a letter C. So when it curves, it comes back to the right side, and then I'm bending it to the back, and then I'm following that along. By the way, if you don't like how the little curve came out, you can just kind of like mess around with it a little bit and use your pliers to adjust it. Okay, so then the other wire just follows it along. Like so. I like to leave a gap between them up top, but not on the bottom. I like for them to come together on the bottom. And now we trim, but leave a little wire end so that you can tuck that away. So with these Lindstrom pliers, that's what I'm going to be using. I'm going to tuck that away in there. Ooh, having trouble getting in there. There we go. And just press them in, getting rid of them. And if you want to adjust, you can come in and do that. Alright, so now with the other 2 wires, I'm just going to bend them across, starting with the frontmost one, which is the twisted one, just putting it right next to, or right underneath those wires there. Okay, I'm going to bend it to the back. You can trim it and tuck it away as well. Or I'm going to actually bring it down across the back and want it to go down across the back of the stone, and I want it to pop out here like so. Like that. Okay, and then same thing with this one here. It's always fun to add a little bead on this one as well, if you want to add a bead. Or alternatively, instead of a bead, we can do a little loop. You can come in with your round nose pliers as well if you want to kind of adjust that loop, make it a little smaller or more rounded. And then we can just kind of bend it to the back. So actually I'm going to lift this wire just for a second here. I just want to give myself the opportunity to tuck this other wire away, and this one's kind of in the way. So So I'm cutting not the twisted wire, but that other wire. Just giving it a trim, leaving a little wire end there. You can see. To tuck that away, oops, these are my round nose pliers. I need my regular pliers for this. Grabbing that, tucking that in there, pressing down. There we go. Okay, so now let's put this wire back where it was. Let's work it across the back, just kind of nice and flush on the back there. You want to really press on it. You don't want to have a gap. Okay, and then here onto the front. So there's a gap, but then when we pull on it, it goes away. So what I'm going to do is make a little swirl. Don't worry that it moves. Once we lock everything in place, it'll be fine. And again, you can use your round nose pliers to help with that little swirl. You can do different things here with the swirl, depending on what you like and what you would prefer to do. But I'm going to make another swirl going in the other direction, like this. So I kind of have two swirls. I'm going to just press that together. So here's what that looks like. I have two little swirls here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bend this wire to the back like that. And that kind of bent my little swirl. I don't know if I like that. I might have to straighten it out again. There we go. And then I'm taking that little wire end and bringing it around, just all the way around, so that this little wire end is going all the way around. It's quite short, so if you're running out of it, you can just trim and tuck it away here on the back, or if it reaches to the front, you can also tuck it away on the front. It doesn't really matter. Either way will work. Just pressing it in there, tucking it away, and now with the swirls, now that that's connected, we can adjust the swirls a little bit. All right, so here it is. Here's the final result. I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please leave me a like down below, and don't forget to subscribe. I post new videos every weekend. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.